this time. This is the series, as Mike already mentioned, you saw in the intro, What's Trending Now? What's trending on your social media feed? You know, I thought, if you just do top trends, it's kind of crazy what comes up sometimes. And, you know, in this series, we've been looking at some of the trends or, you know, what's kind of the major feed going on, whether it's news or whether it's on your social media feed, and looking at what would Jesus say about, you know, whatever that trend is, or what would Jesus say to that situation? Because, you know what, that's what he did when he walked the earth. He addressed people's now needs or what was going on in their now world, but he always connected it to God's bigger picture, God's kingdom. There was something going on. Yes, your now need is important, and God is very much aware of it and concerned about it, but you know what? There's a bigger picture. There's something else that's bigger than our lives. And so what trending topic are we looking at today? Well, I think it's probably buzzing on every single one of our social media feeds, whether you're on Facebook or whatever. It's called the summer holiday. Look at these great pictures from holidays. See if you can pick out some of you. I asked for some pictures. I was flooded with pictures. Sorry, guys, I couldn't use all of them, but there were some great ones. Like best holiday ever. You know, one of the upsides, isn't that great? I love that, Joanne and Danielle. That is like awesome. Woo! It's so great. Way to go, Ernie. Look at that big fish. It's as big as your child, almost. It's so huge. But you know, what are the upsides of living in a climate where winter could literally happen any day? Hello, Albertans. We love our summer holiday, don't we? We love our vacations, whether you spend it away or you spend it in your backyard. Somebody said the best holiday is anywhere there's sand. And, you know, it's just like we love our holidays. That's the upside. The downside is come September, come the fall, back into work, back into school. We kind of get bummed going back into routine. You know what, or maybe this summer was not the summer for a holiday for you. Maybe you had to work extra. You were putting in some extra hours before you went back to school, or you were putting in extra hours because you were thankful you had a job. And you're looking at everybody else's best holiday ever pictures, and you're kind of bummed, and you're kind of, I never got a holiday, I never got a break. You know what? I've got good news for you today. I have got great news for you today. Just because summer holidays are over doesn't mean you need to be at the grind, working hard away until the next break, until the next holiday, until the next getaway. Students, you do not have to dread going back to school. You know what? We don't need to escape to get rested and refreshed. And today I'm going to look at, we can actually live in a place of rest and refreshment even while we work. How do I know that? Because Jesus did, and he offered it to us. I want you to follow along on the screen with me. We're going to look at this, a couple verses of what Jesus was speaking to people that were a little bit tired, a little bit exhausted, a bit worn out, and he gave them some hope. Look at Matthew 11:28. He said, are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion? You know what religion is? Religion is the grind of trying to work to get God's favor. Religion is doing things thinking that's going to get God's favor on your life, or God's going to love you more, or God's going to bless you more. That's religion. And Jesus said, if you're burned out on religion, come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. Have you ever felt like you lost your life in your job, in a season of crazy, in debt? God said, look at what he said. Come away, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Everyone say real rest. Real rest. Real rest means there could be a fake rest. True? Real rest. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. I love this statement. Look at, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. I love this. Jesus was offering hope for the daily grind. He was offering a way of life that was rest. It was a continual rest. And see, the rest Jesus was talking about, it meant refreshment. It literally meant an intermission, like a pause. You know, if you ever go to a show, if you go to a live theater, a lot of times, or a concert, a lot of times there's an intermission. What do you do at the intermission? A lot of times you go get refreshment. You go, you take a break, you take a pause, you stretch your legs because you've been sitting for a while. It's a pause button. And that's what this rest was. And actually this word rest that Jesus used, it was a very specific word in the original language. And where this word was used in the Greek, it usually referred to what was called the Sabbath rest. You know, if you've been in church, grown up in church, any period of time in church, you probably have heard that word somewhere, the Sabbath. And usually you associate it with going to church on Sunday. That's actually not what it's really about. Sabbath is something different. And see, when Jesus was talking about this Sabbath rest, it was a different kind of rest. It wasn't a take a nap kind of rest. It wasn't a get away from it all rest. It was something very unique to God's people. Now, the Jewish people, God's people, it was a unique culture. And this idea of this Sabbath rest, this very special kind of rest, was given only to God's people. None of the other cultures had it. None of the other cultures partook in it. Only the Jews did. And it was such an important part of their culture that to not keep the Sabbath meant the death penalty. How's that? You don't take a break? Stone ya. Seriously, it was such a big deal. It was part of the law. God knew it was something so important that he made it was stiff penalties for not keeping the Sabbath. To the point where in order to keep it, what they started to do, what the religious teachers and religious leaders started to do, they started creating a whole bunch of rules in order to make sure people didn't break the Sabbath. How crazy is that? After a while, hundreds of years of trying to keep the rules, they were getting exhausted trying to keep the Sabbath. And this is where Jesus came in. And he said, this way that you're trying to get your rest is actually exhausting you. And this is what Jesus was getting at. When he showed up on the scene, and he kept the Sabbath, but he was also a big rule breaker of the Sabbath. So you weren't supposed to do any work, which meant helping people on the Sabbath, but Jesus helped people on the Sabbath. You weren't supposed to do any work like heal people, but Jesus healed people on the Sabbath. He actually got into arguments and debates with the religious leaders about the Sabbath on the Sabbath. So he kept it, but he was also a rule breaker because he was pointing people to what the true Sabbath was. He was wanting to show them, listen, you need more than just a day off. You need more than just a day where you're not working. He was pointing them to a rest that their soul needed. He was pointing them to a rest that they needed more than a no-work day. And it was a day of rest the way God originally intended you and I to get rest. See, Jesus was showing us this rest for our soul that he said, are you weary? Are you burnt out? Are you worn out? Are you exhausted trying to just keep up with the routine of life? Trying to keep up in the season of life? And you know what? You need a rest that goes deeper than just a day off. I want to give you this rest for your soul. It's a rest that you can experience while you work. It's a rest that you can experience whether you are a slave or you're free. This is a rest that is deeper than anything you could ever imagine. It's a rest that was really about relationship with God, being fueled by God, having this connection with God, because that's actually what the original Sabbath rest was about. It wasn't just a day off where you did nothing. It was something deeper than that. And this is what we're going to look at. See, the rest that Jesus was talking about was a refreshing rest. It energized you. It got you going. See, holidays are awesome. But how many of you ever had that holiday from hell that you came home needing a holiday from the holiday? Come on, camping fiascos. Man, I remember when the kids were young, we would go on these camping trips. This is why I hate camping to this day. It would rain the whole flipping week. We are in a tent and a van with young children. And what else do you do when it pours rain all day long? You sit in the tent, try to stay dry, and you watch videos. That is not a fun holiday. Some of you that, you know the stage of life we're in with young children. You're like, I need a holiday. When you have a holiday with young children, sometimes you need a break after that. Come on, holidays are good. You need to take a good holiday. But you know what? Not every holiday gives you the rest that you need. Maybe you're spending it with people that you really don't have a choice with, and you're, I don't want to do this. Come on, teenagers. Sometimes you're like, do we have to go on a holiday? The last place you want to be is with your mom and dad. It's exhausting. And that was what it was like when we were growing up. My dad was one of these people that when we were on holidays, you packed as much in as you could, and we would go. And we would visit there was always something planned. Is this I'm exhausted, Dad? Can we just not do anything? Come on, holidays are great, but there's something different, a different rest that our soul needs. We need a real rest. Why do we need this kind of rest? I'm going to give you a couple things what real rest is. Real rest reconnects us. Real rest reconnects us. I want you to look at Genesis chapter 2 with me. And this is the very first Sabbath day of rest. Look at Genesis 2. On the seventh day, this is from the Voice. I love how this is worded. With the canvas of the cosmos completed, God paused from his labor and rested. Thus God blessed day 7 and made it special. An open time for pause and restoration, a sacred zone of Sabbath keeping because God rested from all the work he had done in creation that day. The day was special or holy because God rested. God didn't rest because the day was holy. What made the day holy and special was the fact that God rested. In other words, that is good news for rest. God thinks rest is pretty special. Some of you are like, yeah, I like this. But look at this. The first Sabbath day of rest was God's 7th day, but it was mankind's first day. God made Adam and Eve on day 6, which meant day 7 was their first day. And what did God do? What did man do on his first day? He hung out with God. God wasn't working. Isn't that cool? God's 7th day was the day of rest. The Sabbath was man's first day. And what did they do? God and man hung out together. And you know what that says to me? That rest isn't just a necessity. Rest isn't just a reward for our hard work. It's actually a necessity. Rest is something that you need to be able to reconnect with God, to maybe connect with him for the first time. Real Sabbath rest, the rest that God designed for us, isn't simply disengaging from activity. See, real Sabbath rest is actually engaging with God. So you can disengage and unplug from life doing a whole bunch of different things and not necessarily engage in the rest that actually your soul needs. Hopefully this is resonating with someone. So you know what? It's great. You can chill out. You can play video games. You can, watch Netflix. Go on Pinterest. Read a book. Whatever you do, those are good and those are okay things, but they're not necessarily engaging you in the rest that your soul needs to be refreshed. True? Real rest is about enjoying God. Real rest reminds us. See, that time when we take that space in our day, and this isn't making a proponent if you have to have one day where you do absolutely nothing. It's just not feasible. But I'm going to show you as we go how you can actually live in this constant state of rest, because this is what Jesus did constantly. And see, real rest reminds us that our provision comes from God. See, on the 7th day, God rested from everything that he had created for humanity. He had spent 6 days getting everything ready for you and I. He made a place for us to live. He made food. He made animals. He made everything that we would need. And God rested on that seventh day. He stopped his creation and he stopped his creating and he put in a pause button so that we would be able to stop and remember who is our provider. And see, it was such a big deal to God that when God's people, when he rescued them out of 400 years in slavery, this thing of rest was one of the first lessons that God taught his people. See, some of you might be familiar with the story of God bringing his people out of the nation of Egypt where they've been slaves for 400 years. Maybe you remember the Prince of Egypt movie or Moses or whatever. There was a time where God rescued his people. He brought them out and he was taking them into this promised land. And the first thing that they did is they were, we're hungry. We need food. And God said, I'm going to give you something called manna. It was this white flaky stuff. And he said, this is what you're going to do. It's going to come every day for 6 days, but not on the seventh day. Every day, what you need to do is you need to go out and pick just enough food for that day. If you pick any more, it's going to rot and it's going to stink and no one's going to want to come over to visit you. And so there were some people that they went out and they did as God said, and there were others who are like, I don't know, I just want to make sure. I don't know if I can trust that there's going to be some food there tomorrow. And so they pick extra, but lo and behold, in the morning, it was full of worms. It was disgusting. And God said, listen, you pick for 6 days, once, just enough for one day, every day, except on the sixth day, you need to pick double. Because there's not going to be any on the day 7. There's not going to be any on that Sabbath day. Because I want you to remember, I want you to know that I'm your provider. That your provision, what you need in life, doesn't come from the ground. It doesn't come from the weather system. It doesn't come through the economy. It comes from me. And you know what? We need to remind ourselves of that. We need to remind ourselves, God, you're my provider. God, you're the one that provides my whatever I need. You're the one that provides my job. You're the one that provides the income that we need to live on. You're the one that provides whatever it is that you need. God is the provider. And later he goes on to explain the Sabbath even more to them in Deuteronomy chapter 5. This is God giving them instructions. He's teaching them once again. Listen, you guys got to get this rest thing. This is why. You and your family are to honor the Sabbath by setting it aside for the Lord your God. Make sure it remains holy just as I commanded you. You should do all of your work in 6 days, and on the seventh day, the Sabbath, don't do any work. This goes for you, your sons, your daughters, your male and female servants, even your oxen, donkeys, cattle, and foreign travelers staying at your house. So everybody took a break on day 7. My Sabbath rest is for all to enjoy. Remember what it was like when you were a slave in Egypt. Then with overwhelming power, I brought you out of there. That's why I've commanded you to observe the Sabbath each week. See, God wanted to teach his people to remember. They're not slaves anymore. And you know what? It's for us to remember too. We don't have to be a slave to our job. You can have the right perspective about your work. It's a gift from God. You know what? We are free because of what Jesus has made possible for us. We have freedom in Jesus Christ, and we can have this rest even while we work. This is good news, people. It's very good news. Here's the next thing. Real rest replenishes. Everyone say replenishes. In other words, experiencing rest. I love that. I thought some of you kind of have a hard time. It is. See, rest doesn't mean we are lazy and unproductive. Look at what Jesus said in John 5:17. Jesus defended himself. He said, my Father is working straight through even on the Sabbath, and so am I. Wow. Wait a minute. What are you talking about, Jesus? The Sabbath means stop, don't do anything. Here we have Jesus, again, showing how he broke the rules. He was trying to point people to a new way of doing life in a perpetual rest. Jesus had a full schedule, but he was never hurried. He had lots on his plate, but he was never overwhelmed. He accomplished everything he needed to accomplish, but he still had time to connect and spend time with his Father. And see, here's the thing about rest. Rest is not being idle. When your car is idling, it's sitting there, it's just not moving, true? But it's still using fuel. Sometimes I wonder if the things that we engage in for rest, we're actually not resting, we're idling. We might not be doing anything, but we're still using fuel. We're still using soul fuel. Our soul is still exhausted. We're still putting out. There's stuff that is a drain on us. How do you know if you're idling? Well, here's some things you guys say. Whatever activity you're in, after you're finished, whatever that activity is, do you feel more refreshed or do you still feel exhausted? Whatever that activity is when you're done, is your mind at peace or are you still trying to problem solve? Are you still anxious? Is your mind still going in 100 different directions trying to, you might kick on the video games and the TV and try to put your mind in a different gear so you're not worried and stressed about life. But afterwards, is your mind still trying to solve all those problems? Maybe you've just been idling. See, true rest energizes and readies us for work. Real rest recalibrates us. You know what the word recalibrate means? It means to adjust something so it can work better and more efficiently. And see, when you get a real rest, it adjusts or it recalibrates you to your purpose. It recalibrates you to the unique purpose that God created you to fulfill. The unique contribution that God made you to make a difference on this earth. Instead of just working because this is what I have to do, all of a sudden you get recalibrated to God's purpose for your life. You start seeing your life in the bigger picture of what God's doing. You start seeing yourself at work or at school or at home with the kids. In a place where it's like, I'm not just doing this because this is what's required of me. I'm actually making a difference in these people's lives. I can make a difference at school. I can make a difference at my workplace. And see, real rest will recalibrate you, not only to your purpose, but to where your real engine is, which is the life of God. And we need to get our soul calibrated to the engine of God's Spirit. See, God's Spirit is what energizes us to work. I think it's interesting, you know what, that God rested. He rested from his work, but you know what, for us, we rest for work. We got to get calibrated, otherwise, man, we lose it. That's where Jesus, he said, listen, I'm the vine, you got to stay connected to me. Apart from me, you can't do anything. And so a real rest will recalibrate you. All right, here we go. I have got 3 simple, practical things that will help you. 3 to make it easy. Are you ready? How can you experience the best holiday ever all year round? Here's the first one. You got to look at what your typical or what your normal R&R activities are, and you might need to change them. You might need to take a break from your normal R&R activities. Because the chances are, if whatever you're doing to try to rest and get refreshed, to try to unplug, to try to chill out, to try to get rest in your soul, if you're trying all those things and you're still feeling anxious, you're still feeling exhausted, you're still feeling like, oh man, do I really have to do this? You know what? You might just be idling. And so you need to take a look at what are those things that I'm doing. You know what? And none of these things are wrong in themselves. Please hear me in that, because this is so important. It's just if we're looking to them for the rest that our soul needs, we are going to be left shortchanged. And so you know what? If the TV is your go-to, you might just need to shut it off. Seriously. Like, these things are so practical. If just kind of getting lost in fantasy is your go-to, you might just need to put away some of those things and engage with real people. If you are a person that always needs people around you, you might need to get in a place where it's just you, quiet with God. And if you're an isolator, where you like the quiet time by yourself, you might need to put yourself in the space where people are at to engage, because we were made for connection. We were made for relationship. So you just need to take a look. This is going to look different for you than what it looks for me. And you know what? It might even look different from spouse to spouse. Girls, I'm going to give you some wisdom that your husbands will absolutely love. Do not... You are funny. Do not try to make your husband get rest the same way you do. Do not. Do not. Do not guilt trip him. Do not judge him. Do not put this, we need to do this thing together. Not always. Because his way of rest, to reconnect, to recalibrate, to replenish, might look different from yours. Do not guilt him and make him more stressed. Can you handle that, ladies? Husbands, you can say thank you later. Here's another one. You know what? And this one is for every single one of us. Everybody say, this is for me. Here we go. We need to practice a digital Sabbath. You know what? I will go so far as to say this is actually not optional for us because of the world that we live in today. Because our digital connection to our world, it absolutely affects every single area of our life. Whether you have a smartphone or not, that's it. But we are all we live, just this fact of living in our world, we live in a time and place in history that is hyper-connected to everything. And you know what? It's exhausting. We are always on, always reachable, always connected somehow. And you know what? You might think that's awesome, and there are great benefits for it. I love being able to be connected, but I also recognize, you know what? There is a place that where you need to unplug from that connection. You need to be able to pull yourself out and give yourself a rest. And I'm going to speak very, very clearly just for a moment here, to every person that is like in their 20s and under. Because you don't know what it's like to live in a world that is not connected. You don't know what that's like. See, there's a lot of others we can remember when the internet first came on. Woohoo! We were so excited. We had no idea what it was. We were just excited. Woo! I am connected. I'm so close. 1 kilobyte, 2 kilobytes, 3 kilobytes. Come on. But you know what? 20s and unders, you do not know what it's like to live in a world that is not connected. And you don't even realize how depleted your soul is from always being on. See, when we are constantly connected, there is always something grabbing our mind for attention. Somebody's, something on somebody's life on your Facebook feed or some other Instagram feed or whatever other social media feed you're on. Something is grabbing your mind. Something going on in someone else's life, some other tidbit of information you didn't know, something about Ashley Madison or something else where you're just like, oh my gosh. You know what? You might not even realize it because this is all you know, but your soul is being drained. And you wonder, why are friendships so difficult? You wonder, why is life so hard? Why am I having a hard time connecting? It's because, you know what? People, we live in a world so connected to lifeless things and very disconnected from life-giving things. And you know what? Practicing a digital Sabbath is simple. It's super simple. You just need, first of all, you actually got to look. Again, it's going to look different for every one of us. You need to really look at and ask yourself, is my hyperlinked life actually helping my relationship with God? Is it actually helping my relationship with real people that I see face to face, can touch, can see? Is it helping or is it hurting? And you know what? Practicing a digital Sabbath is as simple as making a habit. You know what? Try leaving your phone at home when you go to run errands. Pick one day a week where instead of students, this is easy. If you're allowed to have your phone on you all of the time, pick one day a week where it stays in your locker. That's it. Better yet, leave it at home for a day. How about maybe a weekend where we're not connected that way? Practice a digital Sabbath. Maybe just figure out how much time you spend and just make a practice of spending less time every day connected. And more time reconnecting with human beings, face to face. It's not massive, it's little things. And this last one, number 3, and this is probably going to be one of the hardest. You need to make time for doing nothing. Seriously, nothing. And I say this is hard because when I first tried doing this, it was probably the hardest thing I'd ever done. You know, it's easy to toss your phone and just shut it off, stick it in a corner somewhere. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to listen to it. But stopping your busy mind and sitting, just start with 5 minutes. You're doing nothing. I'm not talking about emptying your mind. That's not good. I'm talking about being quiet, not reading, and simply listening for God's voice, who is speaking to you. Simply thinking about God and how awesome He is, what He's made possible for you, what He's done for you, what He's given to you. Taking just 5 minutes to do nothing but be quiet and be in awe of God. And you know what that does? That time, we stop all of our creating and doing. Stop problem solving. Stop trying to figure it out. It takes discipline to not let your mind go into, oh, what am I going to do when I'm done here? I got to get this done. I got to go do this kids. And when is this going to be over? And how am I going to do this? Now it's just say, God, you're awesome. God, I love you. And you know what? 5 minutes might turn into 7 minutes. It might turn into 10. It might turn into 30 minutes. You need to create the space for that rest for your soul. Let's stand up, church. I want you to close your eyes. I want everybody to close your eyes, and I want you to just hang here for a moment. I don't want anybody to move, but I really want to ask this question. Do you know the work that you need to stop doing the most? And see, for all of us, the work that we need to cease from more than anything else is that work of trying to save ourselves, of trying to make ourselves more worthy of God, of trying to earn God's love, of trying to work and strive to make ourselves better so God will love us, so God will accept us, so God will forgive us, whatever it is for you. And see, the work that we need to stop from is that work of trying to make our life, our way, work out for us. And we need to be able to just rest in what Jesus has done for us. And see, the greatest thing that Jesus made possible is He made possible for us to not have to work to earn our salvation. But He did all of the work, and He said, I am giving you a gift. It's called you can rest in me. You can rest knowing that I took care of everything that you could never do, so that you can have peace in your soul with your Heavenly Father, so that you can know that you're in a right relationship with your God. And you know how you get that? You simply receive it. And I want us to pray out loud together. And this is a prayer that's saying, yes, Jesus, I want this gift. I'm saying yes to you, Jesus. I'm saying yes to your gift of salvation. I'm saying yes to a new way of doing life your way. I want a new start today. And I want all of us to pray out loud together. Pray with me. Say, Jesus, thank you for the work that you did on my behalf on the cross. I say yes to you, Jesus. I say yes to a relationship with you. I say yes to a brand new start with you. I stop trying to work and build my life my way. I receive you, and I thank you for a brand new start.